Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's PinkUn show, our dedicated shenanigans of Canaries nature, where we went to Wales, so you didn't have to. I am Michael Bailey. Good evening. Welcome here to the Woolpack Public House in the fine city centre of Norwich. We are live, of course, and over the next 30 minutes or so, we will wrap up a week of extremes for Norwich City, prepare for the lingering transfer window to finally close, and take a big, deep breath as we prepare to head for the South folk. And of course, we'll do this all in the superb company of this delightful duo we have tonight. Along come Norwich superstars, Andy Lawn and Tom Parsley. John Punt, you are officially being missed.
Is he? Is he though?
Who said that? I was trying to be kind.
Okay.
Gents, how are you? Lovely to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming in. Are you well? Are you well, Tom?
Very well. Looking forward to having a chat about an interesting few days.
Has been an interesting week. It's been a lively week, Andy.
Yeah, it has been a lovely week. Actually, there's quite a bit to talk about, isn't there?
The way your face lit up was brilliant. Right, so we are live on PinkUn.com and, of course, the PinkUn Facebook page. We want to hear from you too, be it on Dennis Shromesi, being petty to tetty, guys. Leeds, please. Ipswich Towntrums. I thought that was quite good. And especially your Derby Day predictions. Now, it can be a score, but it doesn't have to be. I'm thinking who will cry, which dugout will rile the other more, what will be the best chant, and will the attendance top 20,000, all that sort of stuff. You can get all those through to us here at the pub. Simply post your words below the Facebook feed, and they will ping right through to my iPhone. Daniel Walker, sorry, Danny. Thumbs up from Daniel. Stuart Allen Smith says hello. Kieran Buck goes for a wave. Michael Draper says on the ball City. Paul McKevlog. Oh, I haven't got that right. Sorry, Paul. Good evening. It's been a long day. Ben Harold also waves. Jason Binks, thumbs up. Love it. Cheers, gents and ladies and everyone. Now, Wesley Moulahan is here. Had a heavy night of it in the Welsh fields, celebrating City's Cardiff success, but she has made it to join us simply because she was desperate to sit next to Tom. Also, sadly, she is still bell-less, and now, little story here, her owner of a few years ago, like abandoned parent, turned up a few weeks ago, but only took the bell and left Wesley Moulahan in the office. Sad times, so I think she's recovering from that, but she is still bell-less. So Andy, you're going to do your on the glass, just bring it here, that will be perfect. These are this week's Norwich City headlines. Lost leaders. City spanked by Bielsa's babes, and it's a broken straw too many for some supporters. Yes. Don't break the glass, Andy. Carabao Cup floweth over. Canaries respond with a superb win in Cardiff last night to book a third round tie that will at least be in England and definitely not in Suffolk. Oh. Not so close after all. Tim looks like staying as Hanover won't be had over on price. All of the transfer shenanigans, for better or worse, will be done by the end of Friday as deadline day Mark II arrives. And finally, lovely. It's that time again. No nails left. That churning in the pit of your stomach. It can only be the East Anglian derby, turned down by Sky, and with added whiff of early season relegation worries. What's not to like? Ipswich head into it bottomless and winless. No comment. And there we go. Sterling work. Andy, well done. Glass is still intact. As we said, gentlemen, quite the week. How are you viewing it as we sit here, as you stare through your glass right now? Thomas.
I am conflicted, to say the least. I was desperate to start the season positively. I wanted to give Fark time. I managed to find positives in the first three home games. Lorne and I were at the first three together, and we left St Andrews feeling really positive. Obviously a late goal will do that, but he changed the game early, which is one of the main things that I wanted to see that he'd learned from last season. He changed shape against Preston, which obviously showed again, it's obviously just last week, showed progress, showed that he is willing to go three at the back, change things when you're coming on and making space, etc. But then Leeds happened, and Saturday night it was very, very difficult to maintain my sensible, non-fickle football fan and fight the nature of not just going full on rant. I managed it. I managed to write the review on ComeNorwich.com that wasn't massively negative, but at the moment I feel like you have to put your hat in the ring of either 4 wins in 21 or 1 win in 4, or maybe 2 if you're counting Cardiff, which I don't.
I mean, I have to say I'm looking at where Norwich are mid to late September, because they've got some big fixtures coming up next month once they get the international break coming on. How do you feel, Andy? Because Tom says it's got to be one or the other, but is there a time to bide?
Yeah, I think there's a big grey area between one or the other. For me, it's not been the start that we wanted, obviously, but I don't think it's as bad as Tom feels it is, and I think it's because, as Tom then said, the first 3 games were really, really positive in terms of the performances. The results obviously were disappointing. We then had our worst performance and ironically our best result in beating Preston, and then, as Tom says, Leeds happened, and I think Leeds has pushed everyone off the deep end a little bit, and people are going, oh, it's all doom and gloom, but I think it's actually been more positive than that so far this season, and we haven't got quite the amount of points that the performances have deserved. Leeds was weird, wasn't it? Because we've had so many talks about all the faults and failings with Daniel and his tacticalness, and to me the first 20 minutes was great, and then Norwich went behind, and then it was just like a switch went off and the belief just drained away from them dramatically, as good as Leeds were, because Leeds were very good. So was it almost an attitude issue? I've heard a lot of talk about Manchester United and Jose Mourinho, and all the chat from there seems to be really similar in how they went down to Spurs as Norwich went down to Leeds.
Yeah, I struggle with giving Farke the credit for some of these changes of subs and changes of shape to make influences on games, when we then have games like Leeds where he seems completely ineffectual from the sideline and completely unable at half time, when the game was still not completely gone from us. He seemed completely unable to make any kind of tactical switch or change or substitution. Again, the subs were too late in that game to change it or move things around, and that was what shook the confidence I had from the early few league games. It was that I'd seen some progress in he did seem to maybe be learning some of those things, yet here we were against Leeds and just completely unable to slow them down. He couldn't put more tempo in. I mean, they made their own luck. They got a lot of the bounce of the ball, but it was because they were working so much harder than us. And I thought that was supposed to be part of the blueprint of their double sessions, etc. in pre-season. They seemed hungrier than us. And the big thing for me was, that's this, it's been said many times, but it's really important. That's the same team that, other than one left back, and then Bamford coming on, it doesn't really count because Lawney's better than him. Who genuinely, he's got the same players there who finished goal difference away from us last season, and they are performing so much. I mean, I know they were top this time last season as well, but in terms of like the way they're playing, and that makes you think what a difference a tactician can make.
It does. Obviously, it's a side then that have all played together. So what you're doing is altering what they do, already knowing who they are and who they're playing alongside. But you
can't have it both ways. You see,
and
I mentioned this in the review as well. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, he needs to have extra transfer windows, and then immediately say, oh, he's had lots of transfer windows, so they haven't played together. It's one or the other.
And especially in the second half, it was a lack of changes that meant that Leeds went and got their third goal, and that was game over.
To an extent, I think. But I think you say you can't have it both ways, but you want it both ways in terms of you're quite happy to say it was a really positive first 3 games, and then one bad game against Leeds, and suddenly it's all off the charts. And again, with the Leeds game, as we've all said, the first 20 minutes was excellent. It wasn't a case that it was an awful performance. It was an excellent performance up until we conceded. Then we folded for 5 minutes. And I think after half-time, there was a 10-15 minute spell again where we looked like we might get back into it.
That's generous.
We had that free kick that whipped across the box and Hanley just didn't quite gamble on. Leeds went up there and scored a third, and then it was done, and the last 20 minutes was awful. But I think you're letting the last 20 minutes of that game override everything else.
Well, let's move on to Cardiff, because that's happened since. Now, how much are we taking from this? Because I was there, it was great, Cardiff were woeful, and it was a completely different side. So what do we take from it? What can we take from it?
I think there's a lot of positives in terms of people who can come into the starting 11 in the league games. So Godfrey played really well, Buendia obviously played really well, Scribeni got a couple of goals, that'll do his confidence no harm at all. So for me it was a really positive night in terms of having a squad that possibly can get out of this little rut that we're in at the moment.
But will he make the changes, I guess, is the big question.
I think he will be forced into making at least one or two. I I think it's really positive because I want Norwich to win football games. And
Good. I'm glad you said that because some people maybe I do wonder sometimes.
No,
not you, Tom.
I want Norwich to win football games, and the end result that we want is for us to play entertaining football that gets more good results than bad. I'm more on that side of the fence than I'd quite happily finish 10th or 12th and be in the Championship forever if we're watching West Brom quality games. Losing 4-3. And sometimes winning, like doing the boring 2-0s like Preston's every now and again. I'd much rather be kind of losing 4-3 and being entertained for 90 minutes. It's positive at Cardiff, but again, this is the thing. There's too many games like that Cardiff game where, depending on what you take to that performance, you can make excuses for him saying, well, Cardiff really want to be out of that competition. Colin doesn't, he's got to concentrate on keeping in the Prem, and he needs all of his focus on there. But at the same time, you can make exactly the counter argument. Yeah, but it's also, surely those players are pushing for a place in the Premier League, and they should be really motivated. So I think it's brilliant they got the win. Great for Max Aarons to get on the score sheet. Yes, brilliant. I thought Dennis was great when he came on at St Andrews. He was one of the reasons that game turned. But to me, that doesn't exactly cancel out Leeds, which, let's have it right, was a more important game to get something from than Cardiff.
There was an interesting line from Daniel that Dennis maybe lost a bit of confidence after having a part in the winner that Sheffield United got, and the next couple of performances were a little bit scratchy. Cracking goal. I mean, a lot of people look at him and think, well, he's not going to score goals. Cooper Ducks did a rap that basically said he wasn't going to score that many.
Both of them were really good goals. The header is good break because he doesn't know he's not going to get clattered by the keeper, who, if he'd have come out properly, probably would have saved it.
And the first one, it's not just the finish because it was cracking finish, but it's the little touch away from the defender, little step over, little touch away to buy himself the yard, and then
Lawn-esque, wasn't it?
It was Lawn-esque.
Thinking you, we're going to have to see you in action at some point, Andy. Right, let's get some of your posts in, shall we? Bailey, Lawn and Parsley sounds like a particularly delicious recipe. That's posted by Andrew Lawn.
It does, doesn't it? It really sounds delicious.
You've managed that, have you?
Yeah, like a healthy smoothie, that is, isn't it?
I love it. Well, they're 2-2. Daniel Walker. I'm loving the shows. Normally watch from another pub. I think we're allowed to say that you're watching from another pub.
Pubs are available.
Other pubs are available, most definitely. I'd like to know which other pub this is, Daniel, so let us know. What else have we got here? Matt Gregory. Hi, guys. I was at... Facebook have messed up with their messaging again, which is handy. So let me like that and then do that, which is handy. And then I can't see the rest of your message. Matt Gregory. Hi, guys. Was the Cardiff win good practice for some players to play in front of blue empty seats? I guess the rest says before the derby on Sunday. Yes.
Brilliant, mate. That was professional.
That was worth the time.
Yeah.
It's not my fault, it's Facebook's fault.
Of course it is.
Mark Newstead, best chant on Derby Day at Sunday could well be only one Cameron Jerome. This popped up today, didn't it? Cameron Jerome. I think he's been touted to half the Championship by the sounds of it, but he decided that a move to Ipswich wouldn't be the best idea.
I think that's refreshing, isn't it? A bit of loyalty. It's better than not celebrating in front of your old club. Is saying, no, I'm not going to move to their rivals. Well done, Cam.
I look forward to seeing what Jordan does when he scores his hat-trick third goal. That will be interesting, just how much he does give it to him.
I think something tells me he's looking forward to it, so there we go. Jack Panks, fuck out. There was always going to be one. Wayne Stammers, hello lads, hello there Wayne. Neil Austin, Railway Pub on Sunday morning, MB. Yeah, we're going to come to that, Neil, later on. We'll have a quick chat about that one. Kevin Hall, will we change the goalkeeper? Because of course we've not mentioned Tim Krul, so didn't cover himself in glory, did he really?
I thought Hucks actually had a good line on this when he was on Radio Norfolk on Canary Call after the game on Saturday, basically saying, look, Remy's gone, they've put all their eggs in his basket. McGovern hasn't been fancied for the best part of 18 months. He's not going to come in. I can't see that is feasible. Krul will be on decent wages. He might have taken a bit of a cut to come here to try and get first team football. I think you have to back him and just hope that he can play into some form. He has made a couple of good saves in those first 2 or 3 games. He's made a couple of good saves, but I put 2 of the Leeds goals firmly at him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's been rusty, and I think he looks like he hasn't played football in a while. But I think the people are saying, why did we get rid of Matthews when we've brought in Krul? Matthews was given a chance, wasn't he? And he didn't take it. So I don't think Krul has started particularly well, but I don't see any reason to change him, and I don't think they will change him.
I don't think they will either. All right, keep your Derby Day predictions coming in of what you think will happen on Derby Day, and the more random the better. We like that. You can view the managers' reactions and our own analysis from both Saturday's Leeds game and, of course, last night's win in Wales. That's all at PinkUn.com. Likewise, if audio is more your thing, then may I recommend the PinkUn podcast. To find out more, you can and subscribe here as well. Just check out pinkun.com/podcast. And once you've listened to ours, you can listen to these wonderful guys who do those. How do they listen to your pods, Tom?
Either via iTunes or SoundCloud, or I think we're on Spotify now, are we, as well?
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook. We put it all over the place.
Yeah.
The way to do it. One of the few establishments to have Paddy on.
Yes, we were very, very pleased that he was it the last season that he came and joined on, and he actually came very close to equaling Chris Gorham's 5 out of 6 on the Along Come Norwich quiz. No one else got close all season. Knows a thing or two about football, as Paddy. How did you get on, Michael, when you came on?
All right. I was probably tired. Just 2 days to go. Let's wheel out the windmill. Dan. To continue the chat where I know nothing about football, it's time to discuss the last throws of this current transfer window. City can still bring in loans and loan to anywhere other than the Premier League, or with a view to buy if they so wish, of course. Likewise, they can still sell to any club outside the English leagues, all until the window closes on Friday night. So, first things first, gents, what needs to happen before Saturday?
I think we maybe need a bit more pace at the top end of the team. I think that's where we're slightly lacking with Pukki and Rhodes. We've obviously got Hernandez, but on his own, I think he's the only pace we've got in the team. So I'd like to see us bring in a little bit more pace up top. And I really like the fact that they've brought the window forward, shut it, and then everyone's got around that by saying, all right, it's a loan until January and then we'll make it permanent.
Yeah. Unless Nelson goes, I don't think anything's going to be happening at the top end of the pitch, as much as I think that's where you would hope that some movement could maybe happen. I'm afraid that I wouldn't mind seeing a centre-back come in, and I'm happy. I would be happy for that positional group to be mixed up a bit, and if something did happen for Tim, I wouldn't be that disappointed for Tim to move on and him be replaced. I think Hanny's had a slightly shaky start to the season than how solid he was last year. But for me, as you'll see with the 11s in a minute, for me, it goes Hanny, then Zimmerman in terms of who I think is the most solid Championship defenders we have.
Ben Godfrey was very good last night at centre-back, and given Daniel Farker was saying he's got the potential to be a world-class player.
He also said that about Ivo Pinto, though. He said that one of the reasons he let Husband go was because you have to be world-class to get Ivo Pinto out of the team. So I'm not sure Farker knows what world-class really is.
Well, everyone has the potential to be world-class, don't they? That's
even
true.
You, apparently.
Well, even me. Even with these knees.
Okay, so, would you be happy to see Ben Godfrey play more there, though? Because, I was certain he was going to end up being the holding midfielder this year. Yes,
but not on Sunday.
Well, I'd play Godfrey on Sunday, but I'd go to a back three and I'd have Godfrey in front of him.
Teasers. What about the youngsters as well? Max Aarons scored a cracking goal. Played really well, again in his wrong position on Tuesday night, which I find fascinating because he's really looking comfortable. Todd Cantwell as well, he had a decent game last night, okay. Kind of expect both these players to go out, but Norwich are in a kind of predicament with the homegrown rule that they can't really let many of them out because they might get very short of options.
We were in the singing section for the Stevenage game, and Cantwell was the one slight disappointment. I really wanted him to look fantastic in that game. I was hoping against that opposition he would really boss it, and I didn't feel he had as good a game as he could have done compared to how comfortable a couple of other people looked. But yeah, last night Aaron's in particular looked really, really impressive. Great celebration as well, which is important. Because if you score in your first senior goal, he might not have expected to score, yet he handled it really, really well. Lovely little turn. I enjoyed watching that about 15 times last night.
It was a really good turn. He did take it really well.
Yeah, and I think that's the good thing about Farker is that he is willing to give these players a chance. So while we might have expected them to go out, we had Jamal Lewis come from nowhere last season and break into the team. James Maddison essentially came from nowhere last season. He hadn't really played at all under Alex Neil. So I think this idea of blooding youngsters and bringing them through, I think that's one of Farker's big strengths.
Stuff. All right, let's rattle through some of your messages, shall we? Thank you for them. Keep them coming, especially your Derby Day predictions. Adam Carpenter, I'm more for playing dull football but winning every game 1-0 than playing pretty football and not winning. It's a results-based business now. Tom.
Sorry,
at the top.
Sorry, mate.
It's not a business though, is it? We wouldn't go and you wouldn't drive to Cardiff on a Tuesday night to go and watch a business play football. Football's about more than winning games. It's about having fun.
Frank Wright, do you think any players from last night have played themselves into the starting 11 on Sunday? Anyone?
Lorne does.
Yeah, definitely. I do. Teeler, Emmy and Godfrey.
And Godfrey, indeed. But we'll get on to the teams as well. Emmy Bendia, by the way. Can't wait for him to start playing some football properly. Jake Mann, what a win last night. Atmosphere brilliant throughout, matched by the performance. Anthony Stanley, we have a great derby record and will maintain it. That's the spirit.
Oh, excellent. It's good to know that's going to happen.
Yeah. We have done for years, gone behind and drawn one. Look at the playoffs. I love your positivity. Anthony, great stuff. Kieran Hawes, he's straight in with a 3-1 Norwich win on Sunday. Jason Self, 4-3 to City on Sunday. There you go. That not only is that a win, but that's still 7 goals, Tom.
Yeah, it's my dream. My dream. That 4-3. I won't enjoy the 3 that they going to concede, but yeah.
Lisa Jack, when was the last time the derby finished goalless in the league? Must be due a 0-0. Going for that. Would you happy with that, Andy?
I don't think I would take a 0-0 on Sunday. No, we're not having a 0-0, thanks. But I think the first goal is really important actually on Sunday. I think whoever scores first wins Sunday.
Yes. Okay, that's going to be a one for the thick skin. And Jim Robson, say hello to my embarrassed looking sister sat directly behind you. There she is. She's waving. I don't know if she's in the shot, Dan. But there we go. That's Jim. What's Jim's sister's name? Jules. Hello, Jules. Do you want to talk about Norwich City? No, she's not having it. No, there you go. Well, maybe later. We'll see how the night goes. Brilliant. Keep your messages coming in. Thanks for that, Jim. Top work. Keep your messages coming in, and of course your Derby Day predictions. And they don't have to be score predictions. Anything in terms of around the game. Right. I reckon we get on with this. Lovely, jubbly it is. Flip the bird, the jewel in our own cheese crown. Last time out, Dave Freezer picked up a 5 and David Spud Thornhill managed a generous 4 on a Carabao Cup equivalent to our usual quality competition. So the leaderboard looks tight at the top already, although that quartet is actually tied for second. Producer Dan, not fifth, but I'll let you off that one. Andy, I can't see that you did it last year. Or last season, so I'm not entirely sure how that happened, how you got away with that. I think you were on the AGM show and we were all standing up, so that was one way. Tom, you got a very decent 8, which would be good enough to take you top of the table this term, just so you know.
He never repeats anything twice in a row, though. It changes massively from high to low.
Love it. Putting the pressure on.
We're friends. Apparently, he tells me we're friends. Yeah, apparently, yeah.
So, in short, guys, you have 30 seconds to flip as many barmaids as barmaids. Oh dear, as barmaids. They're in the queue as possible. Adding 1 to your flipping pile with each successful one-handed catch. Simple as. Both scorers will find their way onto the leaderboard, while the winner tonight will get a much-prized selfie with Wesley Moulahan. Obviously. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Get your pile ready. Remember to add them to the pile. None of this flipping one at a time, okay? Look at this technique. Dan, are you ready? Will you watch? Hold on.
3, 2, 1, go.
30 seconds and away we go. It's a slow start, but Tom's managed to get on the board with 2. Andy's struggling quite a lot. But no, Andy, you've got to flip them as a pile, Andy. As a pile. Add them as a pile. There you go.
I literally told him wrong.
Have you told him the wrong rule? Tom has told Andy the wrong rules. This is harsh. Right, now flip that pile. Andy. Are we still going? I don't know what time. I don't know what Tom's doing. Tom seems to have ditched them all and added to a massive pile, which is basically cheating. I'm not really sure what's going in. Andy's actually doing well now. He's actually worked out what the rules are. Well, I don't know what happened there, Tom, because you just picked up a load and started again. So how many have you got on the floor? Let's start with that. And poor Andy did that in about 15 seconds because you were doing the wrong rules.
It was 5. Even without you. You're a terrible player.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I did another 3 or 4 after I dropped them.
Yeah. All right. Well,
let's just call it an even 12.
Yeah. So 8 for Tom, probably.
I'm sorry that I told him the wrong rules.
5 for Lonnie, but we'll give him 6. Just for 15 seconds of wasted time. So you're top of the lead, Tom. You've equalled last year's score. You happy with that?
I'm over the moon with that, yeah. And I'll take winning. So that's for your boy who says he'd rather watch awful things and have results. I cheated. I got a result, so he'll be happy.
Okay, that's the way forward for Norwich and Flip the Bird. Great stuff. Cheers, gents. We'll get the selfie done at some point, but that'll be very exciting. Do you want to run the sting again, Dan? Go on, do that. Hurrah! And we're back. Right, okay, let's have after all that excitement, quick chat with these two. And you mentioned actually the singing section, Andy, which is kind of a bit of the pod and what you're behind, and you've done a bit of crowdfunding and all sorts. So how's that been? How was it at Stevenage, and what happens now?
Well, there's a lot going on at the moment. We've managed to raise just over £4,000 over the summer for atmosphere initiatives. So the first thing was the singing section against Stevenage, and that was pretty successful. It wasn't perfect, but it was quite a good platform, I think, on which to build, and hopefully we now get a home tie in the next round of the Cup and we can maybe look to repeat it. Then Leeds on Saturday saw our first flag display. We've got another one coming up for Middlesbrough, which will be slightly different again, and it was a bit of a small display on Saturday, but we're new to it and we're learning as we go, so we're starting small and we're going to build up over the course of the season, and you should see some better displays, bigger displays, maybe some mosaic type stuff, some flag type stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to look out for, and just keep an eye on E-Block basically.
I like it. I mean, not wishing to ask a horrible question, but when the flags went up and then the Leeds fans are giving it big and about them not being very excited, that's not very nice, is it?
No, I think that was really nice. That's exactly what we wanted. The point of doing it was, first of all, for people to see it and people to notice it. If Leeds fans are singing about it, then they saw it and they noticed it. And if you're not upsetting someone, then you're not making any progress. You're not doing stuff right. So for them to be upset that we were doing it was, for me, a massive positive.
It's also similar to those Norwich fans who give it grief on Twitter and give it grief on Facebook and say, it's cringeworthy, it's embarrassing, we shouldn't even need a singing section. Well, it's quite a lot of games. Those of us who've gone every week for years and years and years have known it louder than it is now, and you can either choose to make keyboard warrior comments about the fact that it's only 150 in the singing section. Well, come and join us then, come and join in and make more of a noise. Like, those initiatives wouldn't have to happen if we were such a perfect fan base that made loads and loads of noise. And likewise, the other fan bases that gave us a bit of grief after the Stevenage game, like your Palaces and your Forests, one of the reasons that they could have such a big singing section straight away was that they have such poor gates. They were able to close off a huge big block of the ground and fill it full of people who are willing to sing and join in. We can't do that at Carabao Road because we have such a well-supported team. There are people who, quite rightly, if Danny Casey said, unlucky, I'm afraid next season we've moved you to the River End, they'd be quite cross that they've been shifted out of the place they'd been for years. So it has to be baby steps, because it has to be baby steps on a league Saturday. And if we bought 3,000 flags, we would only be able to have them in really sporadic, and that would look even worse than having a concentrated area of them. So the point is to build it up, build the club's confidence in the fact that it is worth the return on investment of their time and support of Come Norwich and Barclay and Norwich, etc. And gradually we hope it will become something that is an intimidating end of the ground to play against.
And I think Forest are a really good example, actually. If you look at some of the work that Forza Garibaldi do, they had a really good display that was 3 sides of the ground on Sunday to celebrate them being at the City Ground for 100 years, and that was really impressive. And they started small and have built up to that. And I think the other thing to say is, whatever you do, someone will call it tin pot. Like, that's the thing, like, that's tin pot. But so what? Like, football's fun. Like, that's the whole point, is to go and have some fun with your mates and have a laugh. And it doesn't really matter win, lose or draw. Let's go and enjoy it, because we're going to go anyway.
This great thing about Stevenage was that you could move a load of people together who were like-minded. I mean, how important is that? I mean, also, we've got to do this in the context of the discussion about rail seating and the fact that the FA are now backing that, which I think makes it the FA, the EFL and the Premier League now. So we're literally waiting on the government to make changes, and then, of course, it's the cost involved and those sort of changes. But we already know that Norwich City are quite up for making that change if they can make it financially work.
It's the sort of thing that will definitely make a difference to atmosphere by potentially doing some of the moving people out of the way for us. There are people who don't want to stand. There are people who don't want to be up and about. There are people who don't want to have flags in front of their face. They want to be able to see the ground. And therefore, if they think, hang on, this is going to be more of a noisy section, this is going to be railed seating section, I'm not up for that, actually. And it's the English Cricket Board did a similar thing where they, a few years ago, decided that they would say, right, this is the stand that will have no alcohol in it, and this is the stand where you can have alcohol in view of the pitch. And it was in that kind of, without specifically saying it, they were kind of alluding to, if you want to take your family and not hear any naughty words or fewer naughty words, then this is the bit to go to. If you want to go dressed as a camel or Winnie the Pooh and go on a big conga along the front, then this is the stand and you should do it. And everyone gets what they want. No one's not allowed to have the match day experience they want. But it means that there is more room for us to make more noise and make Carabao Road a funner place to watch football. Because
there's 2 really important points about this. One is what Tom just touched on there, which is choice, which you give people the chance to experience the game the way they want to experience it. If you want to stand, here's a place you can stand. If you don't want to stand, here's a place you can sit. Excellent, everyone has choice, everyone can enjoy what they want. The other thing is safety. Like, people are standing anyway. You saw the photos doing the rounds on Twitter on Saturday after one of Leeds' goals, and they're all sprawled out where they're falling over seats, and at some point someone is going to get injured doing that. and safe standing will stop that from happening. So not only does it provide choice and improve the atmosphere, it will also be a lot safer.
I got a hell of a clonk at St Andrews celebrating that second goal.
To be honest, most people will go, look, I've got massive bruises because we scored a great goal and I had to fall over a load of seats. And football clubs haven't really noted, football fans don't say what injuries they're picking up from falling over seats because it's not being documented. And I think the government have kind of flagged up that that's an issue because they don't really know what they're comparing it against, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. Is that it's almost sort of celebrated in a way, like the hashtag limbs for when there's a goal that really means something. Everyone does fall over. Like as Tom said, the second goal at Birmingham, me and Tom ended up about 3 rows in front of where we started, laying on the floor
steps, yeah.
with like 6 different people on top of us. And I had a couple of bruises the next day, but that doesn't really get mentioned. If someone gets properly injured or worse, killed, then it's a big deal. And the government's whole thing is, seating is safer. Seating isn't safer when it's done the way that it's done at the moment. So bring back this choice and bring in safe standing, and you solve all the problems.
Brilliant stuff, gents. Top work as always. Right, Norwich City notice board. We haven't got time for it this week, but of course, if there are any tweets, stories, events, or groups of a Norwich City nature that you want to flag up here on the PinkUn Show, all you need to do to let us know is get in touch via the usual social media channels, or of course you can send an email to thepinkun@archant.co.uk. So, Championship refresh. Norwich City have made it through to the third round of the Carabao Cup. The draw takes place tomorrow at 7 p.m, but of course it's Championship action this weekend before the first international break of the new season. So here is the picture. Results from last weekend. Borough picked up a late winner over the Baggies, while Villa were pegged back in the last minute. Blackburn continued to show well on their Championship return, while the Blades were big winners at Bolton. QPR and Stoke picked up their first wins. 10-man Ipswich lost out at Hillsborough, and Swansea stuttered. Sean Raggett was the Millers' hero come Sunday. So Leeds lead the pack, although they were knocked out of the League Cup at home to 10-man Preston last night. Let's hope the top half is still some way off taking shape, just 5 games in. Ipswich, Reading and Birmingham are the remaining winless sides, while Norwich's start is officially in the stodgy category. It's clear both sides could do with a win come Derby Day. And that comes on Sunday lunchtime, while Friday's opener should be a cracker at Ellen Road. Villa head to Bramall Lane, while it's a former Premier League crash is probably right, clash with West Brom hosting Stoke, and Millwall Swansea is the live game come Saturday evening. I don't know what you're rolling up things and all sorts, Tom. It's good to see.
We're just making sure we've got a clear view of the table, so we can give some great punditry.
I love it. Thank you, mate.
You're welcome.
Leeds, the real deal.
Too early to tell.
Yes. I really like Bielsa. I always have done. I think he's an excellent manager, and I think the way he's got them playing is perfect to the Championship. If he can sustain it over 46 games, it's slightly different. But they're started like a train, and I can't see that sides can live with them.
The difference between them and Wolves is Wolves bought the players. So with Bielsa, it's tactics, and it's a
manager.
Yeah, fair enough. The wages are huge, apparently. But as the chap from the Yorkshire Post you were talking to before the game on Saturday, saying in his opinion, it's a paper thin squad. So realistically, if they did get a couple of injuries to a couple of the players who are doing well, like Roof up front, who ran us ragged on Saturday, they could then be in trouble. But then if they spent that money on Bielsa, they might back it up in January. That would be my only note of caution with them. And we both got a soft spot for Leeds. We'd like them to go up, but
really?
Yeah, we both.
I didn't think anyone had a soft spot for Leeds.
No, I lived there 5 years. Doesn't tend to go in hand with Norwich, but I do like Leeds. But my only concern for them is if they got a couple of important injuries too far before January, it is only tactics that's doing it. They haven't spent the millions that Wolves did to buy the league, or Newcastle on wages to keep the players to win the league.
They definitely underachieved last year, I felt, as well, which probably plays into it. Surprise package out of this lot? Who's pricked your conscience?
It's got to be Bolton. Bolton to be just outside the automatic promotion places when they troubled relegation all last season.
Well, Bolton, Blackburn as well started really well. I think that shows that there isn't really a massive difference. It's real fine margins in the Championship between success and failure. And I think Bolton is a good shout, Blackburn's a good shout, and even Rotherham has started better than many expected.
I'll tell you someone who I'm not surprised about. That's QPR. From the moment they appointed Steve, I didn't think they would get off to a great start.
2 wins from 2 now.
They're still in the bottom three with a lot of work to do.
They are still in the bottom three. Notable that Bolton lost 3-0 at home to Sheffield United last weekend, so could have been.
They turned up too early.
A bit of business done. Any business done by the Championship over the transfer window that's caught your eye? I thought Blackburn signing Ben Brereton was curious, given Forest made such a thing of building up a young squad, and they've brought in Karanka, and now they've gone for it, and they've ditched off probably their best striker, to be honest. He was a young kid who looked really promising.
It's more a piece of business that wasn't kind of done or going out, in that Bristol City getting rid of Bobby Reid and a couple of others who they've overachieved for the last 2 or 3 years. So I did actually think that they might struggle this year based on the recruitment that they did. And again, it's more the people who went out versus how little came in.
Andreas Weiman's scoring for fun.
Yeah, he's had a really good start, and I think the other interesting signing in this division has been Douglas to Leeds. Let's mainly, apart from Bamford, 7 million, that was laughable. But Douglas, I think, was a really good signing for them, because Wolves fans were really disappointed to lose him, and I think he was one of the players of the Championship last season. So for them to get him is a real coup.
Beautiful work. Right, let's move on then. I've put it off long enough to Sunday, Derby Day. We know what's coming, Portman Road, Sunday lunchtime. And actually, as was mentioned by Neil Austin earlier, that's probably the first question. The Station Pub hosts all the away fans. They've got a licence at 6 a.m. Kind of negates the idea of having it on a Sunday lunchtime, doesn't it? Is this not an indication that, you know what, this could be at Saturday at 3 p.m, this could be in an evening, doesn't really matter anymore?
If it's not a playoff, if it's not towards the end of the season, especially the one, it's so early in the season, I can't remember one being, 5th, 6th game or whatever. I can't remember a derby being this early in the season for a while. It's quite often September, October time, but not this early. And I don't think there's any reason for it. Like, yes, there's vitriol between the teams, but realistically, neither team's season is made or broken by a defeat on Sunday. So I don't see any reason why not. And also, it's not on telly or anything. So
yeah, I think it makes a mockery of the whole move and the kick-off thing for me. And I think it comes down, again, a bit to choice and a bit of, like, if you treat people like adults, then they're more likely to behave like adults. And if you treat them like children, they'll behave like children. And I think it's now ingrained that it's got to be Sunday at midday. Well, I walked out of Carabao Road at the end of the game last year, just after Closer had broken their hearts by scoring right at the end. And there were Ipswich fans there were Norwich fans there. Just walk up the road together, like we're all humans.
Yeah,
like,
and I also don't think that if you want to get there for 6 o'clock and have a pint, that's fine. We're setting off about 9:30, and we'll get there about half an hour before kick-off. Thank you very much.
Well, given the fun we had at the station last year, I don't quite know what we're going to be in store for, but I won't be going there at 6 a.m. for a pint.
You training?
No, we'll take the car. Take the car.
Okay. Yeah. No, we, I was going to say we've got. If anyone wants to make a mess, I've got. No, don't be silly. We've got a spare seat in the car though.
You couldn't have a spare ticket anyway because of their ridiculous rules around. You have to buy it with your ID and take your season ticket. And again, absolutely ridiculous.
What have you made of Ipswich? This was it, wasn't it? Careful what you wish for. Don't lose Mick McCarthy. Yeah. Everyone's jumping on that. And the fact they're now bottom. They've sold actually far more players than I imagined, and it's interesting then the recruitment that they brought in.
You see, they've got rid of 70% of the goals from last year, which is so have we in terms of Maddison with goals and assists. But I mean, in those 4 players. Who one of them got their first goal, didn't they? It was Waghorn scored for Derby yesterday. Yeah, so it's funny that they're bottom of the league because that's always wonderful. But we call ourselves Along Come Norwich because we are brilliant at ending those runs.
I was hoping you had statistically checked it out and then it wasn't a thing. That's what I'm hoping you tell me, because law of averages, 10 games, a decade unbeaten, bottom and winless.
Along Come Norwich.
Well, we did check it out last season, and we got people to submit all the Along Come Norwiches that there were, all the potential ones. There was actually a potential Along Come Norwich last night with Medine having not scored for Cardiff. Yes. He didn't score. And actually, it's not really a thing. Like, we don't end as many runs as you think we do. It's just a bit of confirmation bias where you notice it when it happens, and when it doesn't happen, like last night, no one mentions it.
We're definitely holding you to that, by the way. We're going to clip that out, and then that's going up all weekend so that no one begs.
I'll take full responsibility.
And he won't get a lift home. So I'll have two spare seats on the way home.
That's better. What does Daniel Farke need to do? We can have a little look at your 11. Shall we? Who's first 11, Dan? Tom, talk us through the 11, but also what do you want to see from Norwich? Bearing in mind, although they did win on Tuesday night, they haven't won an away game in the league since January.
They will see this, that lot down the road, as a huge opportunity. They will be whipped up into a frenzy, maybe even more than, obviously not the playoff games, but the other recent games that haven't meant anything up or down, because he will be absolutely desperate to try and get a win. With that in mind, that's why I put Tribal and Tetty in there. And also, I think that it's time to drop closer and play Zimmerman. I think Zimmerman has less confidence in himself than Closer, and I think that could be a real issue. It was something that Leeds played on. We need to play front to back faster, which we did really well against Birmingham, and we need to go back to that slightly more direct style of play against them and bypass midfield a bit more on Sunday. I feel I don't want to see us play that all. I don't want us to play like that all season, but I think we do need to do that on Sunday.
And you've got Morris Leitner in number 10 role, but with two players ahead of him, which is probably the key there.
Yeah, I really like Momo. I don't think he's had as poor a start to the season as some people have thought, mentioning no names, Michael. But I like the way he tries to move the ball. I like the way he tries to recycle possession. I like the fact that he's a little bit ponderous, but if he's up the top of the pitch being ponderous, I've got much less of an issue with it than when he is one of those either holding roles or, even worse, the only holding role at one time or another.
Expand on that point. Who's had a worse start?
Who's had a worse start than Momo? Ivo Pinto's had a worse start than Momo.
Only played a game, basically. Andy, let's have a look at your 11, shall we? Take us through it. 3 at the back.
Yeah, I switched it up and went 3 at the back, and partly that comes down to countering Ipswich because they will just launch it. So I'd have our best 3 headers of the ball.
Are they not playing nice football now?
No, so I've got a couple of Ipswich friends, and speaking to them...
I beg your pardon.
Got a couple of Ipswich friends.
We need to talk about this.
And speaking to them for the Come Norwich preview ahead of Sunday, they're not quite as direct as they were under Mick, but they're still pretty direct. Paul Hurst has got a direct reputation from Shrewsbury, and he's still about getting it forward as quickly as possible and getting it forward aerially. So I'd have our best 3 centre-halves in there. And I think also we've looked our best this season when we've played 3 at the back, and I think it would free up Emi Buendia, who I've stuck in, and I named this team before his starring role last night. So I think that frees him up a little bit more. I'd have Godfrey in there with Leitner to keep the ball, and I think Marshall has been up and down so far this season. When he's looked good, he's looked very, very good, and then he's looked a bit anonymous. And I'd have 2 up top with Pookie and Rhodes.
Now, I was putting this team together, and I was like, oh, you've literally just forgotten about Anel Hernandez.
Yes, I have.
Oh, have you? Or is that not a tactical decision?
I've literally forgotten about Anel Hernandez.
It's a bit harsh.
Marshall out and put O'Neill in.
I'm sorry, Andy. I thought there was going to be some great thinking behind it.
No,
I feel a bit bad now.
Best player, involved in nearly every goal we've had. I think he probably needs to start, mate.
Go on then, who are you going to drop?
I'll drop Marshall and put O'Neill in.
I think
Right wing back.
Also, I've been singing Onel Hernandez's song in my head for like the last 3 days. I've started to get annoyed with it, not being able to get
My
it
brain was telling you you'd forgotten him, probably.
out. Yeah, maybe, yeah, and I have. So Marshall out, Onel in, lovely.
Sorry, I feel right bad now.
Marshall, I've been disappointed that he's been used as a wing back or a right back. He needs to be played as a forward player, but then having said that, he was crap when he did actually get the opportunity.
I was going to say Preston was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, no,
but he was playing as a kind of, he wasn't an out-and-out winger, and again, this is a slight issue with Ben. He was brilliant for Millwall, but Daniel Farker rarely plays an out-and-out winger that you'd see at Millwall.
No, you're allowed one, it seems, in Farker's system. The way that he plays his players at any one time, and it seems that only O'Neill is allowed to do that, but obviously not in Lawney's 11. But Hernandez is the only one who's allowed to have that freedom. It would be great to have 2 proper bombing wingers, but I'm not sure this is the game for wingers. I would definitely start O'Neill, but I think this is a game for getting the ball quickly, getting the ball forward quickly, and bypassing the kick him up in the air midfield that they're going to try and get going. I think that's how they're going to approach it. I think we need to bypass that. An early goal for either team will have a similar effect, I think, as the Leeds goal on Saturday. I think if someone concedes, maybe even first half, whoever is on the receiving end of that, the fans will turn quickly.
And he's shaking his head.
Well, I agree with the second half of that. I completely disagree with the let's sink to their level and then try and beat them at their own game. I think the point Tom made earlier about how he's going to have them really whipped up and stuff, I think that's where Farker's sort of calm, measured, laid-back approach comes into its own, because yes, they might be really whipped up, but you deal with that, you keep the ball, and then you hope that their frustration and they're overfired, and then they get a red card or something like that, and you just pick them off with patient play.
In the interest of balance, I should say that I had to ring Tom at 6:30 because you'd only given me 10 players. Yeah. So But, you know,
That would have
Mo's
been
in
better
there.
if you'd have got
Yeah.
the right number of players in the team.
It's been a long day. So there we go. Let's get some of your messages in before I make any more mistakes. Kevin Hall, anyone coming in or going out? I can't see anyone coming in, personally. I know they've been linked with Kingsley Schindler, is it? A winger? I think there's possibly something in that, but not immediately and not particularly close. So, and then out. Do you think Russ will still be here, Russ Martin? Because we've sort of been waiting for him to go out on loan.
Don't know.
What do you reckon, Andy?
I think he might get a loan somewhere. I'd like to see him go out and play some football because, you know, he's a good character, isn't he? And I think possibly Nelson will go somewhere on loan, and it's just like a maybe 5-10% of his wages rather than 50%, just to get him some football and get him off the books.
Yeah, it would be good, wouldn't it, if Russ went out? League codes. My team for Sunday is Krul, Lewis, Hanley, Closer, Godfrey, Marshall, Tribal, Tetty, Rhodes, Pookie, Hernandez. I don't know how many players that is, but sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds like the right number of players. Were there enough defenders there?
Yeah, why not? I reckon he's got it nailed. Kevin Hall, he loves Jim Rawson's comment, yes, of course, with his sister, who's not looking as embarrassed as she was earlier. Lee Coates adds time to play 3-4-3. Well, that's not quite what you got, Andy, but close enough.
Yeah, I think Buendia would push up. He's not really a defensive midfielder, is he? And Leitner would sit in, so that could be a 3-4-3. Especially if you had Hernandez in there as well, like you should have.
If you remember him, he might not make it on the bus. Where's Anel? We've left him behind. Oh no. Mark Newstead could have really done with Kenny McLean on Sunday and any chance of a surprise return. I think after the international break, and Daniel does sort of keep saying that Emmy will be ready for a start after the international break as well. So
I
maybe
can't believe he'll start him after playing him on Tuesday. I don't think Emmy will start on Sunday. I think he'll come on once with 3-0 up and then like get the fourth, maybe the fifth.
Matt Gregory, why does the first derby of the season seem to be played at Portman Road? Go on, why do you think, Tom?
I think because that's the way it's usually been, and that's fine with me. I'd much prefer it be that way round. In the same way you always want a home tie second in a cup.
Love it. Why not?
Agreed, yeah. I think the fixture computer's found a little system that it likes and it's just sticking to it.
It does, doesn't it? There's like the similar patterns of pictures. Anyway.
Similar with where we are first game and last game. We're always away first game, nearly always away last game, and we're at home on Boxing Day, which is no good for me because I go on holiday.
They can only put in 2 requests, I think, Norwich, in terms of fixtures. They can only request 2 things. So.
I really like an away Boxing Day, so it's been the first home Boxing Day for a while actually this season. The last few have been good. It really mucks up my plans.
Can we request that? A home
Yeah,
first
is it
and
too
last?
late?
I don't think everyone can request it. I think
Oh.
you'd have to speak to the
They're
club.
pretty important. I'm surprised.
Try luck.
If we all write in, everyone watching this writes to the FA.
Yeah.
Home first and last game. Thanks.
Okay, let's do it. Kevin Hall, Closer seems to struggle at Portman Road, so would look at Zimmerman and player 3 at the back. So he's basically mixed your 2 together there. And Lorne Smybert, hello there, Lorne. Hi, gang. Needs Dennis to play Sunday. He has the passion and commitment needed. Be a big call if you play Dennis Shrabeni and not Jordan Rhodes back at Portman Road.
I admire anyone who's willing to come up with a different opinion to the masses. Can't see any way that Rhodes won't be up front with Timu off him. Rhodes will be plenty motivated enough.
Well done for not including the word but there. I was quite impressed by that. Top stuff. Thank you for so many messages and comments. Really appreciate it. Makes the show. So, predictions for Sunday. I want a key man and I want how it's going to finish. Gentlemen, Andy, you go first.
So I'm going to go Keyman Leitner, based on what we were saying earlier about I think we need to keep the ball and I think we need to quell their little bit of fire with a bit of composure and a bit of sensibility and keep the ball for a little while. I think I can see us losing. I just can. But I'm going to be positive and I'm going to say we're going to score first and romp home 3-0. But first goal it's all about that first goal.
I love the idea of Norwich kicking off and then just keeping the ball for 20 minutes at the start. Just dilute everything. Anyway, Tom?
Jordan Rhodes hat-trick, 5-0. One for the annals.
That's one way of putting it, most definitely. Gents, what a pleasure. That is us for tonight. Remember, you can watch all this show and our superb Norwich City coverage over at the PinkUn Facebook page and YouTube channel. But first and foremost, PinkUn.com. I'll be at Portman Road on Sunday alongside, these two will both be there, of course. And Paddy Davitt and Dave Freeze will both be there with me. So make sure you keep tabs on PinkUn.com for all our build-up, team news, live coverage, analysis and reaction. And if you see us around, make sure you come and say hello, of course. That also goes for Friday's closure of the transfer window, PinkUn.com for all the breaking news, reaction and analysis. It may be an international break next week, but we will still be back here again live at the Woolpack next Wednesday evening from 7 p.m. in the centre of Norwich. So please join us, be it in the flesh or online. And it's worth adding, if you want us to come to your local, be it pub, cafe, chilling room, lounge, kitchen, garden, barbecue, love one of those, or if you want to be one of our fans pundits, simply send an email to thepinkun@archant.co.uk and we will do the rest. It's almost over. I can almost go home. In the meantime, a big thank you to our guests tonight, brilliant as ever, to Tom and Andy of Along Come Norwich. Listen to the podcast. Cheers, gentlemen. To the Woolpack and to all the crew, which is basically Dan. Well done, Dan. Top work. Yeah, round of applause to Dan. Doesn't often get one of those. And of course, to you guys and girls for watching and getting involved. We will see you again next week. Until then, you know the deal. Cross everything you can and hope for the best. After all, it's worked for the last decade. Good night.